I accidentally uncovered the reason my parents almost got divorced, and it happened because of a dusty cardboard box that was never meant to be opened. I was helping my parents clean out the garage one weekend when I found several old boxes stacked behind shelves covered in years of dust. Most of them contained boring things like tax documents, old magazines, and holiday decorations, but one box caught my attention because it had my mother's handwriting on it and was labelled "Important, do not throw away." Naturally, I became curious, and while sorting through the contents, I found an old envelope filled with letters, photographs, and what looked like legal documents. At first, I assumed it was something related to finances, but then it noticed a date from more than 20 years ago and several pages mentioning separation agreements. My heart skipped a beat because my parents had been married for over 30 years, and as far as I knew, they had always been happy. The more I looked through the papers, the more confused I became. There were handwritten letters between my parents discussing trust, disappointment, and difficult decides. Ion's one sentence stood out immediately: "We cannot keep living like this." Something had clearly happened, and whatever it was had nearly ended their marriage. I quickly put everything back exactly where I found it, but I could not stop thinking about it. 4 days the question stayed in my mind. Growing up, my parents had always seemed like the stable couple everyone else came to for advice. They rarely argued in front of use and always appeared united, so the idea that they had once been close to divorce felt impossible. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me, and I asked my mother about the box. I expected her to brush it off for me, it was private, but instead she became very quiet. She sat down at the kitchen table and stared out the window for a few moments before saying, "I wondered when someone would eventually find those papers." My father joined us shortly afterward, and when he realised what I was asking about, he exchanged a long look with my mother. The silence felt the AV. Then my father took a deep breath and said, "If we're going to tell this story, we should tell the whole thing." What followed was nothing like I expected. Years before I knew Asbor, my father had been offered a dream job in another city. It was the kind of opportunity that could completely change a career. The problem was that accepting it would require moving hundreds of miles away from family, friends, and everything my mother had built for herself. My father wanted to take the job immediately, while my mother wanted to stay where they were. They argued about it for months. Neither felt vard, and both became convinced the other person did not understand their perspective. What started as a disagreement slowly turned into resentment. Ordering Tommy mother the job itself was never their issue. Their issue was that they stopped talking honestly. They became so focused on winning the argument that they forgot they were supposed to be solving it together. Every conversation turned into a fight. Every compromise felt like surrender, and eventually they reached a point where they wondered whether the marriage would survive at all. These separation papers, if found, were created during the worst part of that period. They never officially filed for divorce, but they came close enough to prepare for the possibility. I was shocked, not because of the disagreement, but because it sounded so ordinary. There was no betrayal, no secret affair, no dramatics scandal, just two people who loved each other but stopped communicating. My father admitted that he spent years feeling angry because he believed my mother was standing in the way of his future. My mother admitted she felt abandoned because she believed my father cared more about his career than their life together. Both of them were hurting, but neither fully understood what the other was experiencing. Then something unexpected happened. A family friend noticed how badly things were deteriorating and convinced them to attend counselling. At first they resisted. They assumed counselling meant failure, but eventually they agreed because they realised the alternative might be losing everything. Over time, they learned something simple but powerful. The problem was never the job. The problem was treating each other like opponents. Once they started listening instead of arguing, they discovered